irrigation at the Asante Sana, Dr. Shadrach. We'll be hearing from you a little bit later on. And of course, we have the country directors from Welthunger Hilfe and Concern Worldwide Kenya, who we'll be hearing from in just but a few. Perhaps to break the ice, I'd like to involve you in an icebreaker or so, because we are launching a very serious report, but it shouldn't water down the liveliness in this particular room, right? Exactly. So perhaps we can start with an empty chair visualization, because before we start looking at the details of this particular report, if we can perhaps take a look at the third chair at every table. Just count 1, 2, 3. If you're the third chair, perhaps you will represent this time round a Kenyan who is currently undernourished, malnourished. Let that sink in, because you'll be representing the roughly 3.7 million Kenyans in acute food insecurity. So they might look nutritious, they might look happy, but the representation is they're representing the 3.7 million Kenyans who are actually facing acute food insecurity. And we're here today to make sure we fill those chairs with solutions. So we won't just be unpacking the realities of hunger in Kenya. We'll be reflecting on the progress that has been made by the partners in this room, and those who will be watching via the media outlets will equally take a look at the progress that has been made. As we reflect on that, we'll confront the setbacks and explore the solutions. Equally, another icebreaker: how many of us were in this sector back in 2006? Because as I was doing my research, I understand this particular report has been running for the last 20 years. So I want to see the veterans in this room. If you are still in this space in roughly 2006, let's see some hands. Oh, wow. Okay. That's quite a number of veterans. But we equally have to appreciate those who are joining in this fight to ensure that we achieve zero hunger. So the newbies in the room, let's see your hands as well, because you actually show us the energy that we'll need to bridge the gap and make sure that this particular goal is a reality. The newbies in the room, me included, hands up, because you're equally doing your part to ensure zero hunger. Asanteni sana. So we'll definitely need to bring these groups together to ensure that zero hunger is a reality. We've just heard from Christian Schneiper, who's the country director at Welthunger Hilfe. I'd like to call to the podium Nellie Kingston, who's the country director of Concern Worldwide Kenya, for a few remarks. As she makes her way to the stage, kindly let's give her a round of applause. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everybody. Irrigation Secretary Tenui, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honourable Representatives of the Government of Kenya, distinguished partners from the private sector, the humanitarian and development community, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So you might see a little symbol on my shirt, which is the shamrock. It is a symbol of Ireland, and today, the 17th of March, is Ireland's National Day, St. Patrick's Day. I'm mentioning that because as we talk about hunger, if you would like to return to the period 1845 to 1852, Ireland experienced a famine which decimated our country. Today, in 2026, the population of our country has yet still to recover. Our population in 1845 was 8 million people. 1 million died of hunger, 1 million emigrated, and many others left in the subsequent years. So while our diaspora has spread wide over the world, our country today has a population of 5 million, but many people know of Ireland and Irish potatoes. So the war against hunger is truly mankind's war of liberation. And these were the words of John F. Kennedy, and they still ring with urgency today. Let us pause for a moment and confront a difficult truth. For many of us in this room, hunger is an issue we discuss. But for millions, hunger is not a discussion, it is a daily reality. This is the reality that the Global Hunger Index places before us. Today's launch represents 20 years of measuring, tracking, and responding to hunger across the world. And yet, after 2 decades of effort, children are still going to bed hungry. Globally, progress against hunger has stalled since 2016. Conflict, climate shocks, economic instability, and weakening political systems and commitments have slowed the momentum. Hunger remains stubbornly present. The economies continue to grow, but growth alone has not eliminated hunger. Climate shocks have become more frequent and more severe. Urban hunger is rising, yet often invisible. In most of the arid and semi-arid land regions, cycles of drought, floods, and resource-based conflicts continue to disrupt livelihoods and food systems. At the same time, the global humanitarian landscape is changing. Donor resources are shrinking even as needs increase. This means that the responsibility to end hunger requires a renewed commitment to collaboration across sectors. Government leadership remains central. Policies, budgets, and systems determine whether progress can be sustained. The humanitarian community brings experience in responding to crises and protecting vulnerable households. The private sector shapes markets, food systems, and innovation. Yet too often, our efforts are fragmented. No single institution can end hunger alone, but together we hold enormous potential. Government can strengthen national and county food security systems. Humanitarian actors can help build resilience and protect the most vulnerable. The private sector can unlock innovation, strengthen supply chains, and make nutritious food more accessible and affordable. When these forces align, the impact multiplies. What is needed is the courage to recommit to zero hunger, not as an aspiration, but as a shared responsibility, because hunger is not inevitable. If we act together with urgency and commitment, the next generation benefits. I welcome all of our stakeholders today, and particularly on this, our national holiday. So I will end with my own language, where I say, Aguina Ushla, a Cordia Galer, Banachtina Fela Podrig, Agus, Fáilte Rolf Galer. Friends and dignified guests, happy St. Patrick's Day. You are very welcome to our event today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I hope some of us picked a couple of words, because you never know when you'll be in Ireland. It's a global village these days. Asante Sana for your opening remarks. Remember, we are currently live on KTN, so for those of us who are tuning in, welcome to the launch of the Global Hunger Index 2025 report. And we're here at Fairmount, the Norfolk, just to take a look at the progress that has been made, even as we highlight some of the challenges towards the journey of recommitting to zero hunger. I'd like to call to the podium our next speaker, who will give their opening remarks rather briefly. His Excellency Ambassador Catriona Ingoldsby, High Excellency rather, apologies for that, the Irish from the Irish Embassy. Kindly, karibu sana. A round of applause, please.
Good morning, everybody. Irrigation Secretary Tanui, government officials, representatives of Welthunger Hilfe and Concern, and the Embassy of Germany and EGAD, partners. Nelly used the words Aghuina Ushla, which in Irish means noble people. So that's what we say at the beginning of a speech, and it covers everybody. So Aghuina Ushla, I'm delighted to be with you here today. And it's a real privilege to be invited to speak at today's launch of the Global Hunger Index 2025. And I really would like to express my appreciation to Concern Worldwide and to Welthunger Hilfe for the invitation. I think we gather here in Nairobi at a time of crisis, really, for international development. I probably don't have to tell many of the people in the room about this, as we face the loss of many years' progress in addressing hunger and malnutrition in particular. But I think despite this challenging overall context, there is reason for hope and opportunity, and I think this gathering this morning is a good example of that. And I think even the excellent discussion that was just on the short panel there shows that there are good people with good ideas who are really committed to this important sector. And I think all of you, the number of people who are attending here, the media coverage that it's getting, the presence of so many senior Kenyan government officials, I think that is a reason for optimism, that there still is, in spite of the challenges, a wide community, not just here in Kenya, but also beyond, that remains dedicated to the eradication of hunger worldwide and in this region. And I think, as a number of the other speakers have already emphasised, we need to come together and pool our efforts, strengthen our collaboration in advancing this shared priority. While conflicts, economic shocks, climate extremes and forced displacement continue to drive food insecurity and malnutrition around the world, Ireland's commitment to addressing acute hunger and malnutrition remains absolutely steadfast. We've been a long-standing supporter of global efforts to reduce hunger and malnutrition, and as Nelly said, the reason for this, the reason we place priority on it, is firmly rooted in our own history and our own experience. We know that to reach SDG 2 and address malnutrition, a joined-up approach is needed. As global champions for food security and nutrition, all of us in this room know that we must align our actions and collaborate across sectors, including health, as other speakers have mentioned, social protection, food systems and education, transformation, which we believe really must be at the heart of efforts to reinvigorate the 2030 agenda and to accelerate progress towards the achievement of the SDGs. Our work in this area focuses on supporting inclusive, climate resilient food systems that can deliver food security, healthy diets and improve nutrition outcomes, particularly for the poorest and most vulnerable. And we recognise the human rights to food and freedom from hunger, and we try to champion a human rights-based approach to our work across food systems and nutrition. For our own part, the right to food is one of the key thematic priorities for our campaign for membership of the Human Rights Council for 2027 to 2029. And in light of this, our work on women's economic empowerment in the agri-food sector very much champions gender transformative approaches so that women and girls who so often eat last and eat least in their households can benefit from improved access to land, improved access to finance and the fruits of their own labour. And Ireland, we will continue to resist the global pushback on gender equality and women's rights. I think, Nelly touched on it and Christian touched on it as well, is it really acceptable that famine continues to occur in the 21st century? there is enough food. What we need to do is to do much more to end and prevent conflicts, to end the use of starvation as a weapon of war, and even I think some of the points that our earlier panel made there, that hunger is not just about food, it's about good governance, it's about transparency, it's about accountability, it's about youth engagement. But in relation to, I suppose, starvation and conflict, and hunger and conflict, I think we think particularly of, at the moment in this region, the devastating context in Sudan, where we see looting, burning of crops, destruction of infrastructure, and blockading of the delivery of life-saving aid to populations, which is then exacerbating famine conditions in many parts of the country that have already been confirmed by the IPC. So this is not the time for backsliding on international commitments to the SDGs and to official development assistance. While the figures in the index are very stark, and the report in places makes for a harrowing read, documents like this, I think, are really crucial because they provide evidence-based analysis to spur action on the global hunger crisis. And I think more broadly, it's something that's really important that we need to watch as there is a funding crisis in the development and humanitarian sector. Access to good data is so important, and I think that's why this is a really important index, tracking developments over time. We know, and as others have said, we are seeing here in the Horn of Africa, consecutive failed wet seasons. Severe drought is maybe not only a possibility, but very likely this year. And I think we know Concern have a very long and admirable record in the development and implementation of innovative approaches to the identification and treatment of malnutrition. And in this region, as one of our panelists talked about, we're very glad to partner with Concern worldwide and an impressive consortium of partners and local organisations on the Hanano programme, building the resilience of communities in the Mandera Triangle borderlands area of Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia. And Ireland has committed €15 million over 3 years to the Hanano programme as part of our broader commitment to tackling child wasting, because we believe that every child deserves the chance to reach his or her full potential. We see this initiative as a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of collaborative action. It recognises the very complex web of factors which contribute to child wasting and seeks to address them through a comprehensive and multi-sectoral approach. Trying to build sustainable solutions that address the underlying causes of the child wasting crisis in the region. And this programme really tries to break that cycle of malnutrition, investing in early childhood development, providing access to affordable nutritious food, and ensuring access to quality healthcare for children and mothers. And we think that this initiative is a really important step in the right direction. Our own Minister for International Development visited the programme last month. He travelled to Dulawado in Ethiopia, where communities are also on the front line of the climate crisis as well. And I know the Minister was deeply impressed by the project, and I suppose most importantly restated Ireland's commitment to tackling global malnutrition. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our colleagues in the Government of Kenya and in IGAD for their collaboration on this initiative and for their leadership in this area. And we can see that Kenya itself has improved its global hunger index ranking over the last few years. As a hub for international development, humanitarian and UN actors, Kenya also plays a strong role in supporting the development and humanitarian sectors and in the global fight against food insecurity. The Honourable Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, he was our chief guest at our reception for our National Day, even though our National Day is actually today. We had the reception last Friday when we had another Irish minister in town. But in his remarks, he specifically mentioned the role that Ireland and Concern have played in the region in tackling hunger and malnutrition. And here in Kenya, I'm here with some colleagues from the embassy. We have Aaron here, who's on our development team, and Anthony, who's our agricultural program officer, who's down there. But here in Kenya at the embassy, we have the Ireland-Kenya Agri-Food System Strategy, where we work with Kenyan partners to strengthen food systems, support innovation, contribute to the strengthening of food systems policies, and improve livelihoods for smallholder farmers, contributing to that broader effort to tackle hunger and malnutrition. More broadly, at the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris in 2025, Ireland delivered an ambitious pledge to spend €250 million each year for the next 4 years in this area. And through this commitment, we'll continue our support to ending hunger, to saving lives and improving the health of millions of people, including through the specific focus that we have on ending child wasting. And I know for various reasons, many other countries now are having to cut their official development assistance budgets, and the overall funding environment is very difficult. We know that, but for our part, Ireland is increasing our ODA allocation. We're not cutting, and we're very committed to trying to reach the 0.7% target. We're very committed still to the Sustainable Development Goals and to those many international commitments to support the furthest behind and to tackle malnutrition. And as Nellie said, this is based on our historical memory of the great hunger. The Irish words for it is an gcuirt tamór, which means the great hunger, because again, food was available. But not for many, many people in the country. And as Nellie said, we lost a quarter of our population to death and immigration. And this has very much driven our commitment to eliminate food security or food insecurity globally. And we'll continue to stand with all partners in this region, multilateral, government, NGO and private sectors in the fight against hunger. Nellie used some Irish, and I did at the start of my speech, but maybe just because it is St. Patrick's Day, some of you might have heard, if you go to Ireland on your holidays, you see magnets and things with different Irish sayings, and one of the sayings is Gunyairi an bóthar leat, and it's translated as "May the road rise to meet you," but that's probably not the exact translation. It's more "May the road rise with you." And people mean, well, what does that actually mean? What do these things mean? But the kind of the idea or the essence behind it, and I think it may be said that it's a St. Patrick's blessing. Now, whether it is or not, nobody knows, but that's what the tourist magnets say, I think. But it's the image of being on a journey, and at the end of a hard and arduous journey, it's that when you're walking, that the road, when your steps are hard, that the road comes up. So the steps are just that little bit easier. And I think Christian referred to the fight against hunger as a journey. And I think that's what we wish for everyone in this room today. We know that the funding environment is hard. We know that this is difficult work. But we hope that with that collective action, that the road will rise to meet all of us, working in this area, working in this sector, but I think in particularly that the road will rise to meet the people who suffer every day the consequence of hunger. And even in the complex global environment, which seems to be getting more complex every day, I think we need to continue to work together, not to be overwhelmed, and continue to work collectively and collaboratively with great focus on this area, because it is so important for so many millions of people, not only in Kenya, not only in this region, but for millions of people around the world. So we wish you all the very best with the launch of the report this morning, but also with the really important work that all of you are doing. And I hope people getting together inspires everybody for a deeper commitment to do more and to do better together to fight global hunger. Thank you very much. Gurb maith go léir. Thank you.
A round of applause once again. Thank you so much, Ambassador Katrina Ingoldsby. Let's break the ice just briefly, because we've heard from the speakers. We had a panel discussion a little bit earlier on. I'd like us to take just 60 seconds. Once again, look at the person sitting next to you. If you don't know who they are, find out their name, at least reconnect. There we go. But equally, as you find out who exactly they are, I'd like you to ask them this question. Okay, nice. I think we're well acquainted now. Kindly make sure you ask them this question. What exactly they're doing as an organization, as an individual, to make sure that we address matters food insecurity. What are they doing? All right, all right. I'm stopping the clock at 60 seconds because hunger doesn't wait, and neither should our collaborations. Okay, so if I can have your attention, I think we're well acquainted now. At least we have an idea of what they're doing in terms of aligning with the theme to ensure there's zero hunger in Kenya. As we proceed, I'd like to call the next speaker to the stage. Okay, silence, kindly. There we go. I'd like to call the next speaker to the stage who will give their opening remarks. Kindly, Christian Friedman, the policy officer at the German embassy in Nairobi. Kindly make your way to the podium. As he does so, let's give him a round of applause.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Distinguished guests, Secretary Tanui, Ambassador, Christian and Nelly, and all the other ladies and gentlemen. Today we present the 20th edition of the Global Hunger Index, jointly produced by Welthungerhilfe and Concern Worldwide. And 20 years or 20 times is a lot, and for me it's also become a tradition because it's the fourth time I'm actually at this kind of event here in Nairobi. So I'm also very happy to be here. And this year's guiding theme is both a reflection and an urgent call to action. 20 years of tracking progress, time to recommit to zero hunger. And we must use this moment not to just look back at the data, but to look forward at the immense work we still have to do. Because these 20 years is a significant, albeit sobering, milestone. And why do I say sobering? Because for many years, the global fight against hunger was a story of hope. Globally, we saw a positive trajectory until around 2015, but unfortunately, we are now witnessing a tragic reversal of that trend. This global reality is deeply reflected here in Kenya. Over the past 2 decades, Kenya made important strides, reducing its GHI score by approximately 24% from 26 to 25. However, this progress has noticeably slowed since 2016, and today Kenya's GHI score stands at 25.9, placing the country firmly in the serious hunger category. You've heard this before. It's a stark reminder that more than 1 in 3 Kenyans, 1 in 3, remain undernourished. But beyond the structural challenges, we must address the immediate crisis at hand. Kenya is once again enduring a severe drought, although it's hard to believe when you look at the weather in Kenya, in Nairobi, but in the northeast, more than 3 million people are threatened by or directly facing hunger. This is not an isolated crisis. Our neighbors across the region, particularly in Somalia, are facing devastating food insecurity under the same harsh conditions. Within Kenya, these shocks do not affect everyone equally. They disproportionately devastate the arid and semi-arid lands, where historical poverty and food insecurity are at their highest. And this brings us to the profound injustice of our area that also hardens the situation, which is climate change. The climate crisis is intensifying food insecurity, and it strikes the most vulnerable groups the hardest, often those who have contributed the least to global emissions. With more than 80% of Kenya's agriculture dependent on rain, food production is highly exposed to erratic rainfall and recurrent droughts driven by a warming planet. We cannot talk about fighting hunger without talking about building climate resilience. Distinguished guests, hunger is not an inevitable fate. It's a challenge we have the tools to solve, but it requires sustained political will. I call upon policymakers, government officials, and international partners in this room to reprioritize the fight against hunger to achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 2, zero hunger. We must scale up our investments, and currently agricultural spending in Kenya continues to fall short of 10% commitment established under the Maputo and Malabo declarations. Meeting these targets is essential to strengthen the resilience of our food systems. Furthermore, we must break down the silos between our institutions. As experts on the ground remind us, no single sector can solve this alone. The health department cannot fight malnutrition without the agricultural sector, and agriculture cannot thrive without sustainable water management. Let us use this 20th anniversary of the Global Hunger Index not just as a mirror reflecting our current struggles, but as a catalyst. Let us recommit to zero hunger, ensuring that every citizen has access to the sufficient, safe, and nutritious food they deserve. Thank you very much.
Once again, a round of applause as he makes his way to his seat. We appreciate your input, Christian. As we continue with the program, I'd like to call a representative from IGAD to give his brief opening remarks. Dr. Shadrach Oye, kindly make your way to the stage. We are ready for you. A round of applause once again.
Irrigation Secretary, Joel Tanui, distinguished ambassadors and development partners, representative of government, civil society, private sector, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I stand here on behalf of Dr. Fatuma Adan, who is the head of mission to the Republic of Kenya, IGAD, she was supposed to make this important remark on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Wakene Gabeyehu, who is the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. Allow me, on behalf of IGAD and our Executive Secretary, His Excellency Dr. Wakene Gabeyehu, to express our sincere appreciations to the organizers for convening this important launch of the Global Hunger Index. We commend the government of Kenya for its continued leadership in addressing food and nutrition security, and we recognize the important contributions of the development partners, including Concern Worldwide and WHH, whose collaboration continues to support efforts to combat hunger and strengthen resilient food systems in our region. The Global Hunger Index serves as an important reminder that while progress has been made, hunger remains persistent and complex a challenge. Kenya scores 25.9, which we all know now, which places the country in a serious hunger category and underscores the need for renewed commitment and accelerated action. Although important gains have been made in improving child nutrition and health outcomes, progress in reducing hunger has slowed in the recent years. Across the IGAD region, where we are actually, we face similar realities. Climate shock, economic pressures, conflict, and structural inequalities continue to threaten food security and nutrition outcomes. In Kenya, more than 80% of agriculture depends on rainfall, making food production particularly vulnerable to increasingly frequent drought and floods. This is why IGAD places food security, nutrition, climate resilience at the center of our regional integration agenda. Through the IGAD Drought Disaster Resilience and Sustainability Initiative, IDRISI, IGAD works closely with the member states to strengthen resilience in drought-prone areas, particularly in the arid areas as well as the semi-arid areas, where vulnerability to food insecurity remains highest, and I think that has been mentioned earlier. Through the IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center, ICPAC, which has the center in Ngong, we provide seasonal climate forecast and early warning information that enable governments, farmers, and humanitarian actors to anticipate climate risks and take informed action to protect livelihood and food systems. In addition, IGAD continues to strengthen food security through targeted regional programs and strategic partnership. For example, and this program has been well represented here, for example, through the Hanano program, implemented in partnership with Concern Worldwide, in the Mandera Triangle, IGAD is supporting communities to strengthen food system, improve nutrition outcomes, and build resilience through coordinated action of the subnational government authorities. The program demonstrates how regional cooperation and community-level action can work together to address the root cause of hunger and vulnerability. IGAD is also advancing livestock development and pastoral resilience programs, recognizing that livestock remains the backbone of livelihoods for millions of pastoral and agro-pastoral communities across the region. Strengthening livestock value chain, improving animal health services, and supporting sustainable rangeland management are critical for improving food security and economic stability in the dry areas. Evidence such as the Global Hunger Index is essential, very essential for guiding policy and actions. However, evidence alone is not enough. Ending hunger will require greater investments, let me emphasize, in agriculture, strong governance of food systems, and deeper collaboration across sectors, from agriculture, livestock, Kenya, development partners, civil society, and the private sector to advance resilient food systems and secure the health, the livelihoods, and the future of our people. Let's today launch, therefore, serve not only as a presentation of evidence, but also a renewed call for collective action, stronger partnership, and sustainable investment to end hunger in our region. I thank you for your attention. Asanteni.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shadrach Oye, who is representing IGAD. We definitely appreciate your input. A couple of things stand out from the opening remarks we've just listened to. Collective action, concerted approach, because we need to strengthen the food systems and build resilience. But it's equally important to acknowledge that access to good data is important, and that's where the GHI 2025 report comes in. And we equally need sustained political will and greater investments to make this zero hunger dream a reality. So as we continue with our program, I'd like to once again call the country director, Welthungerhilfe. Is he in the room? Well, he seems to have stepped out. Just wanted him to briefly greet the live audience who are currently tuning in on KTN. But even as we continue with the program, let's do a brief icebreaker, because we're just about to hear the Global Hunger Index scores in Kenya and the indicator values, which will be presented shortly. So I wanted to test the myths versus reality, because we're all stakeholders in this journey towards zero hunger. So once again, you'll be looking at your neighbor and perhaps just find out if they have the facts true, or we need to ensure that, you know, they have the true facts on the ground. So perhaps you can do a thumbs up, thumbs down for facts, for fiction, according to your knowledge and your capacity. So let me start with one statement, which will be presented a little bit later on during that report. Kenya's child stunting has increased in the last 20 years. If this is true, thumbs up. If this is false, thumbs down. What do you guys think? It has increased? Are you sure? I'm seeing a couple of thumbs down in the room. Well, I'm not seeing a lot of thumbs. Let's see more thumbs. Well, what do you guys think? There's no wrong answer. Okay, I think the thumbs down are a little bit more than the thumbs up. And that statement is false, because it has actually dropped from 35% to 17.9%, which is progress. A round of applause. That's a good thing. Let's taste another statement. Kenya is currently ranked in the moderate hunger category. True or false? Ah, you've done your homework. Okay, so that's definitely false, because we are at the serious category. And that's why we're here, all stakeholders, to put concerted effort towards making zero hunger a reality. And in case you got those answers wrong, it means you're in the right room. That's why we're here, to realign your intuition with the hard data. And let's just do that. I can see the country director is here, Christian Sniper. We'd like you to briefly say hi in 2 minutes or so to the live audience that are tuning in on KTN, just to appreciate the work you're doing at Welthungerhilfe. A round of applause, kindly.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy that also now online people are able to join, and on the TV. Welcome to our Global Hunger Index launch event 2025. Yeah, it's an opportunity for us to recommit ourselves to the fight against hunger with all the stakeholders in the room. We had the ambassador of of Ireland here with a wonderful speech that was just given. We have the guest of honor, the Irrigation Secretary Joel Tanui. And thank you very much for coming. We have representatives from the German embassy and the private sector, the academia, and the civil society. And the whole event today is about recommitting our fight against hunger and reflecting on the results that the Global Hunger Index is given us over the last 20 years. The history shows that progress is possible, especially in the years between 2000 and 2015. In a minute, our colleague Edgar will present the results of this year's Global Hunger Index in detail. But we also must see that this progress has stalled in the last 10 years. And that's why we're talking here as a recommitment to the fight against hunger. When we say we, it is my organization, Welthungerhilfe, and we're doing this together with Concern Worldwide. And we are proud to host this event, and you're all welcome. And thank you for joining us here in the room, but also at home on the television screens. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Once again, a round of applause as he makes his way to his seat. Okay, we now want to get the facts right, and I'd like to call to the stage a good friend of mine, Edgar Okoth, who's the Executive Director at SAN CSA. He'll be presenting the GHI 2025 report, of course, categorizing where Kenya lies in terms of the Global Hunger Index scores and the indicator values. A round of applause, kindly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jesse. To the Irrigation Secretary, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished colleagues. Allow me to say, Laole Podri Sunagit. Nelly, I hope I've not butchered it. Yeah, so I was just saying happy St. Patrick's Day. I see everyone is looking at me. Yeah, yeah. So that is what exactly it means. Sorry, Nearly, I hope I'm right. Eh? Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's always good to be relevant. Yeah. So today I'm going to present to us on the Global Hunger Index. And we're going to try and understand the structural drivers of hunger and pathways to food systems resilience. But before then, allow me to line. Who was hungry this morning? If you're hungry this morning, just raise your hand. Okay. Who is hungry now? Who has been hungry over the last 1 month? At any one point? Okay, I see that. So yes, it means that we understand what hunger means. And that brings me to the reason why we are all gathered here in terms of trying to understand why the Global Hunger Index really matters. Because it's something that we've done for the last 20 or so years. But why do we keep on doing it every year? It means there is something that we are looking at. So number one, hunger and malnutrition weaken human capital, economic growth, and national resilience. His Excellency Dr. William Ruto no, we cannot get there when we are hungry. And that's why it's really important that we work on our hunger, our malnutrition status, so that we have the human capital, the right human capital to get us there. We need to be able to understand that for us to have economic growth, then we have to be able to fight hunger. But for us to be able to get back onto our feet, whenever something strikes, like when we had the COVID-19 pandemic, only the people who are resilient actually got back to their feet. There are people who are still suffering from the effects of COVID-19, but we don't want to be there when we're already in Singapore. We want to be able to get back to our feet. So that's why, number one, that's why the Global Hunger Index is really important. Number two, we've always been told, and we know this, that children are our future. Barack Obama once said that we have borrowed the future from our children. So then how are we handling this future? When a child is malnourished, there are long-term effects. And one of the indicators that we're going to talk about is stunting, where it is you're too short for your age. And studies have shown that when a child is stunted, they will forever be stunted. So if a child is stunted under the age of 2 years, there are no corrective measures. Yes, you can make the child grow at adolescence, but once the brain is actually affected, that child will never live to thrive. And we want to ensure that our children live and thrive and survive in Singapore. So we need to ensure that we fight these lifelong consequences for health, because there are effects of hunger in health or stunting in health. There are effects of hunger in education, because there is also classroom hunger. There is classroom hunger. So as much as you're suffering from hunger at the community, but then also in the classroom, there is also hunger. And for those who have been fortunate enough to be in classrooms, is it possible for you to teach a hungry child? Is it possible? Yeah? Yes, the child will forever be angry at you because they are hungry. Yeah? So it's always good that we ensure that our hunger status is looked at. And then also we're looking at economic productivity that links to point number one in terms of economic growth. The third thing that we need to really understand is that without coordination, and Diana brought it out here very, very well in terms of looking at governance, we will fail to get to meet our goals, that is the SDG goal number 2 of having zero hunger by 2030. How then do we arrive at the Global Hunger Index? So looking at these 4 indicators, they're really critical in terms of understanding how we calculate our Global Hunger Index. So number 1 is you're looking at the undernourishment. So this is a combination of child stunting and wasting, and it tells us in terms of within the population, what is the proportion of children who are hungry, and it is at 36.8%. Do you know what that means? In practical terms, if you're walking around Nairobi, you can count children under the age of 5. 1, 2, 3. One of them is hungry. That is what it means. So, Banda Secretary, as you provide so go and count 1, 2, 3. One of those children that you've counted, if they're the age of 5, under the age of 5, they are actually hungry, literally hungry. And you'll see in terms of where hunger is. 17.9% of our children are stunted, meaning that they are too short for their age. But that's really not what we're talking about here. Yeah? We're not just talking about the physical stature. What we're interested in is the brain development. Because stunting is a marker and a maker of development. That has been proven several times. So when you're saying that 17.9% of our children in Kenya are not having proper brain development, what that means is that, Bwana Secretary, right now you are raising children who cannot take over from you. You're a very brilliant person, but remember your children, you need to raise them so that they take over from you. So when we are seeing such statistics, it means that something needs to be taken care of. Yeah. And then the third one is wasting, which is 4.5%, and this is where a child is too thin. And many times, when there are several episodes of wasting, the child becomes stunted. And also wasting is also an indicator of a child that is nearing death. So when you find someone is too wasted, then that child also needs to be taken care of. And then the last one is under 5 mortality. When you look at the synopsis, you'll find that how we calculate this and how we apply the score. 0 meaning that good, but then 100 meaning that it's poor. So when all this is combined, and then you'll find where we are. So having said that, where are we as a country? And I'll also tell you a story on this. So when you're looking at where we are at, and I think this has been said over and over, it's at 25.9%, and meaning that we're ranking 103 out of 123. So if you look at the synopsis on page number 4, you'll see how we are ranking against our neighbors. Those who are looking, stop looking from the left, look from the right. Yes, we are at the bottom, so start looking from the right, moving this way. Because if you look from the left, you'll get tired before you get to where we are. So we are 103 out of 123 countries. And we are really, in terms of hunger levels, we are at serious state. And that means that we are raising a hungry nation. And a hungry nation is an angry nation. So it means something needs to be done. And I'll be able to provide some of these interventions that we feel that if scaled up, then we can be able to get that right. So for me, when I was growing up, and I think even in Ireland, when you're growing up in a very poor family, a hungry family, but also you have neighbors who are more hungry than you. Your parents will tell you, don't go to so-and-so's home. Yes, they're not doing so well. And that is what our neighbors are now saying. Yes, I know we are hungry, but Kenya is more hungry than us. Yeah? So that's what Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, all these people are saying. So that's how they're looking at us when you look at the figures. And figures don't lie. So despite 2 decades of progress in child malnutrition, hunger has remained largely unchanged since 2016. And we'll try to diagnose why is it that this has not really changed, and why is it that from 2016 things went haywire. So looking at the 20 years of progress, so Kenya has moved from 34% to 33 to 25%. But you can see we were making steady decline. Then when it got to 2025, 2026, we started doing very poorly. What do you think happened? That's a question that we'll need to answer. But my theory is that in 2013, we had devolution. And devolution was meant to do really, really nice things, which it has done, don't get me wrong. But I think 2014, people were still adjusting, 2015, and then 2016, we were trying to implement, but I think that's where maybe we defaulted. That's just a theory. But we'll figure it out. I think we have a myriad of reasons as to why this has happened. But also in the next slide, I'll also show you in terms of how we've been doing very well in terms of stunting. And you'll see how our stunting has moved all the way from 35% and then getting to 17.9. But also we are seeing that there's been expanded health and nutrition programs that have helped in terms of improving our food production. So when you look at this slide, you'll see that our stunting rates, we were 33, then did very well. So the upper blue curve is what I'm talking about. So from 35.3 all the way to 17.9, we've just rounded it off to 18%. So that's how we've been doing in terms of all this. But then if we've been doing very well, why is it that hunger still persists in Kenya? Because having 25.9% is not something to be happy about. So these are the 4 reasons that we managed to look at. So number 1 is that we are seeing that there are still too many children who are still malnourished. And remember, it's 35-point-something%. So we're not just looking at stunting. We're looking at wasting. We're looking at child mortality. So all these things are still telling us that we are not still doing well as a country, and that is driving our hunger. Excuse me. Then number 2 is the climate shocks and worsening food insecurity. We all live in Kenya, and we're in a country whereby when it is dry, it is really too dry. But when it rains, it really pours. And we've been witnessing that. Yeah? So it tells us in terms of the extreme nature of the climate shocks that we are facing. And that's why we're calling it climate shocks. Yeah? Whereby you're seeing that when it comes to even food production, 80% of our food production still relies on rain-fed. Yeah? That means when there's no rain, there is no food. When there's a lot of rain, there is no food. So either way, we are still doomed. Yeah? Yeah. So it means that something needs to be done on that. Then the third one is that the inequalities that we are seeing. So this 35.9% in agriculture, the irrigation, the purchase of equipment and all that. So we're finding that also is a major contributor to hunger in Kenya. So these 4 are things that are largely contributing to us still being hungry as a nation. But they are not just this, there are also others that contribute, but I wanted just to talk about this because they are the major contributors. So some of the drivers, but I'll also talk about, is the rising public debt. I think that has been talked about. I'll also tackle it. Chronic underinvestment on agriculture, I've talked about that. Our imports, yeah? We are a net importer as a country, but we need to reverse that. Climate-sensitive agriculture production systems, and then incomplete irrigation and infrastructure delivery, weak market and coordination systems, and devolution. So when we layered all these in terms of looking at all these drivers and also looked at our global hunger index, this is how the graph was playing out. But I'll explain in this next slide. So, one, when you look at our public debt in relation to our GDP, our debt keeps on increasing. And as Diana said it rightly, is that one of the things that we do as a country or as a nation is that we pay that debt first. So regardless, you just still stay hungry, but you must be able to service your debt. And you're finding that this is actually reducing the physical space for agriculture investment, food systems infrastructure, but also nutrition programs. Because once you've paid off your debt, and it is more than what we are doing in terms of development, then you have very little amount of money to be able to distribute across all these things that are healthier for us. Number two is in terms of our chronic underinvestment in agriculture. I know there have been a lot of talk about Galana Kolalu, there have always been, but then when you look at it, then the amount of money that we are allocating to agriculture is really minimal. So this actually limits our productivity growth, slows our expansion, and it's good that we have the agriculture secretary here. It's very difficult to expand our irrigation because of the underinvestment, because then your hands are tied. If you don't have any resources, then it becomes very difficult. When you look at the climate change and food security, we rely so much on what Mother Nature will bring. So if they are good enough to bring us some rains, we'll harvest something. If not, then too much rain, we don't harvest. Too much dry season, then we don't harvest. And this actually now weaken also our resilience. Market systems is something that people don't talk too much about because a majority of us are subsistence farmers. But when you look at in terms of our market systems, especially the smallholders, they actually compete a lot with middlemen. The middlemen will come and then undervalue their crops, but also when they go to the market, then they actually overvalued. And this also exposes households to global price volatility, because pricing is a factor of access. If you cannot be able to afford it, then you cannot be able to access it. And then farmers also receive low farm gate prices as a result of the middlemen. I put this on a slide on its own because of issues to do with gender, but also issues to do with who is it that works in our food system, especially on the lower side of food systems in terms of production. So we find that women provide over 80% of agricultural labor, but then they cannot be able to own the same land that they are working on. Why can't they own 80% of that land? Because they are working on it. So it means, as a country, we need to relook at who is it that produces our food. And do they own that land? Because land is a factor of production. If you do not own that land, it means that anything that comes from that land, you do not have a right to it. You've worked on it, it's really nice, but then you cannot be able to own. So it means we need to do something to ensure that that is done. But also female land ownership also has declined. And I think this is now reason number 2, as to why we are seeing our global hunger index is now really getting bad. Because remember, from 2014, there's been a decline from 7% to 3%. So it means that before, and I think, Christian, that's why in 2015 we've stagnated, because they're not owning this land. Yeah. And you know, if you don't own something, then you cannot be able to really work enthusiastically on it. So I think that's the reason. Now, my theory number 2 as to the reason why there have been that decline. So the land ownership has moved from 7% to 3%. But this does not mean that it is equal to access. They might access it, but do not actually own it. But also that slide was because we are also celebrating International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day. It's a month, so we are celebrating it the whole month. Yeah, thank you. So as a country, Bwana Waziri, let's work on this. I think if we work on this, then if there's a magic bullet, then I think this is one of those magic bullets that we have. So where is hunger concentrated? And Diana, IPC is the integrated phase classification. Yeah, so we can. So this just tells us in terms of our food security situation. So it tells us where we are right now, but also where we are moving to. And things are not really looking great. You know? Because when you look at the concentration of hunger, because this is the food security and nutrition, when you look at the countries along the coast, to the northern areas. So when you look at December to January, the projection was that it was not okay. But when you look at now the farthest one on the right, February to May, it looks even worse. Yeah, because the yellow part is now becoming more darker. For the purpose of this presentation, that is red. Yes, for the purpose of the presentation. Yes. So you're seeing the red color and the yellow one. So you're seeing it's becoming more dark when you look at February to May. Yeah? And also we're looking at the coastal counties are also very much affected. But in terms of absolute numbers, we are drawing these absolute numbers from the urban informal settlements. Because that's also where hunger is also concentrated. So let's not forget about the urban informal settlements, because they are also very hungry when regards to food in the country. So we did some engagements with various stakeholders, and I love this quote because it's really talking about where we are. So food insecurity in Kenya is deeply geographical. The geographic hotspots are mainly the arid and semi-arid lands, and these counties have remained in IPC 5 and 4 in emergency for more than half a period between 2016 to 2026. So that tells you that it is information that we have, and it is a pattern that we've been seeing over and over again. But what about investment? What are we talking about when it comes to investment and debt? So this study was done between 2018 and 2022. And we were looking at investments into food systems in relation to other sectors. And in food systems between that period, there was an average investment of 1.6%. But when you look at education, 4.8%. When you look at health, 4.2%. But it gets more scarier when you unpack the 1.6%. When you unpack that 1.6%, then you find that the investment is even less. For example, investments that are going to agricultural infrastructure is only 0.4%. Investments into nutrition is 0.2% in relation to the overall budget. But what should worry you more is why is it that agriculture or food systems get less investments yet it contributes so much. So 20% or over that of our GDP comes from agriculture. Agriculture is our backbone. Why is that? Whatever gives you more money is where you have the least investment. I thought it would be the other way around. Yeah? So that where you get more returns is where you need to invest more. But also when you look at employment, over 40% of our population are actually participating or employed directly on agriculture. But when you look at other ways of doing it, you find that it might be more than that. In the rural area, it is even more than that. So public investment in food systems has relatively remained low over the last 10 years. But there's good news. Yeah. There's good news. There's good news. And the good news is that government is taking lead when it comes to this investment. Yeah, so when you compare the investment, what government is putting in versus what other stakeholders or international funds or international donors, so government is taking lead. Can we clap for government? At least it means that you're taking leadership on this, and it means that you have control on this. And I think if you just say that work of your finger, let's increase our investments, it will go a long way in terms of the investments that we have. So domestically, the financing is majorly coming from government. And you can see from 2018, we had around $1 billion plus coming from government, and then it keeps on going down. So in 2022, it went dramatically down. But apart from investments, government has also put in a lot of effort in terms of the enabling environment. So there are quite a number of policies that and strategies that government has actually put in to allow for food system sustainability in Kenya. But I love this in terms of the strategy that talks about how do we ensure food availability, how do we ensure food access, how do we ensure that we have a resilient system. And the ASTGS is one of these national strategies that puts this in the right perspective and brings together all the stakeholders in terms of ensuring that we have a system that works, a system that is able to feed this. So the question is, why is it not working? Why is it not working? And that's one thing that we need to look at. In terms of coordination, and I picked on the nutrition coordination because nutrition as an outcome is one of those things that is critical. Also, we have a really, really nice coordination structure that enables us to be able to make decisions, right from the national level all the way to the county level. And this enables us to be able to unite and also come together as stakeholders working in the nutrition sector. So what is one of the things that national level is saying? Hunger and malnutrition in Kenya have worsened over the past decade, largely due to increasing impacts of climate change on food production, livelihoods. Rapid population growth has not been matched by a corresponding increase in production of major staple foods, resulting in lower food availability. So this was just a way of trying to validate the findings that we had, and it's really in line with what needs to be done. So in closing, who do we need on the table? And how do we ensure that we have sustainable food systems? So we're looking at several people, and we grouped them together in terms of government agencies, research and academia, civil society organizations, currently the public benefit organizations, but also the private sector. And we believe that a multi-stakeholder engagement with these people will enable us have sustainable food security in Kenya. So what are the roles? And I'll go very quickly. So government, and especially looking at the MDAs. So one is about policies, regulations, and food safety standards. So that is something that we really need to play very well. Promoting sustainable agriculture and food availability, enforcing food safety and nutrition regulations, coordinating national food security programs. So coordination still comes here as the role, primarily role of government. The academia and research institutions is to provide us with information, so evidence for us to be able to act, in terms of providing us with improved varieties, because we know the climate shocks that we are facing, but also in terms of informing policy decisions. Remember, policy must be informed by evidence. So the research institutions need to guide in terms of policy development. The civil society organizations, one playing a role of advocacy and also policy reforms, consumer awareness and nutrition education, community-led food systems, but also monitor policy implementation and accountability. Accountability is critical because there must be someone to ask you those critical questions. Why is this not happening? Why are you not doing this? But also just to keep government on toes and other stakeholders. So we're looking at the private sector is to be able to implement the food safety, support value chains and food markets, facilitate investments on food production. Remember, the private sector are like the oil that ensures that everything works. Yeah? So they're the ones who can be able to reach the unreached in terms of being able to move food from where it is in abundance to where it is required. So the county governments, for them, they are service delivery, so in terms of ensuring that there is financing. And lastly is, what do we need to do as we are gathered here to make sure that we recommit? Because this question in terms of time to recommit to zero hunger is coming at a critical moment, because who knows what's happening at the continental level? The CADAP Kampala Declaration that is starting this year, 2016 to 2035. And it has also more or less a similar building resilient and sustainable agri-food systems in Africa. And this lies squarely for us to be able to recommit. So it means that right now, how do we recommit? We have a framework. The CADAP framework provides us a way of recommitting and how we make this happen. It has an accountability platform, the biannual review, that will enable us every 2 years to take stock on what we do. So I think it is really at the right time that we make this happen. So Kenya must increase agriculture investment and meaningful investment, not just saying that we're going to put money aside for this. We need to see that actually happening practically on ground. We need to see scaling up of climate resilient farming. We need to see strengthening of food system governance. Poor leadership leads to poor outcomes. So leadership is at the center of everything. Governance is at the center of everything. So if you don't do it right, then we'll not be able to, we'll come back here, those of us who will be alive in 20 years, and still find ourselves asking the same questions. So we need to be able to address regional inequalities because they draw us down. So as much as we might be doing right in some quarters, if we do not also uplift them so that we are the same level, then we'll not be able to achieve whatever we need to achieve. So with that, I want to just leave this for you to reflect upon and find a way of how we do that. So otherwise, I want to thank you and hand it back to you, Jesse.
Well, asante sana, Edgar. So much data to consume. Good thing we have the time and we have collaboration from government agencies, research and academia, the CSOs and private sector as well in this room. A couple of things stand out. The progress has slowed since 2016, and we'll be belaboring to find out why exactly. Agriculture investment is low, despite agriculture being a backbone in the Kenyan society. That's definitely worrying. Gender inequality equally stands out. And these are some of the issues that have been canvassed in this detailed report. Once again, a round of applause to Edgar and the team. Asanteni sana for that. We'd like to deviate from the program just briefly to hold a brief picture moment with some of our key partners right here. I'd kindly ask them to make their way to the podium just briefly. Christian Schneiper, the country director, Welthunger Hilfe, Nelly Kingston as well, the country director, Concern Worldwide Kenya, equally Christian Friedman, the policy officer at the German embassy, And we'd equally appreciate the presence of the IGAD representative, Dr. Shadra Koie, if you can make your way to the stage. And of course, our chief guest, Tanui Joel, kindly make your way to the stage for just a brief photo moment. You know what they say, if you don't take a picture, it never really happened. So kindly, briefly. Karibu, karibu. All right, thank you so much, Makofi, as they make their way back to their seats. Well, as Edgar was presenting that report, a couple of things stood out, as I mentioned, and I'd like to perhaps engage you guys on some of the statistics. The report mentions that child stunting is at 17.9%. If you look at where we're coming from, that's progress, but it's still a challenge. If you believe we can get to the, a number that's below than 10%, can I see by a show of hands how many believe that progress can be made and we'll be able to achieve below 10% by 2030? How many of us think we can do that? Okay. Well, not too many hands. I don't know why we don't believe that, but I'm pretty sure the conviction within ourselves is definitely loud and clear. Since you have been so patient with us, we'd like to perhaps, Waswahili wanasema kurudisha mkono. We have placed a couple of stickers across various tables. Those stickers are labeled Global Hunger Index, Zero Hunger, GHI Concern. So for anyone who can grab one of these stickers, we have some merchandise to give out right here. So just look at the tables in front of you. Can you spot any sticker? Something to do with GHI Concern? Something to do with Global Hunger Index? Not the glasses of water. Is there any sticker on your table? To anyone who sees that, we have some merchandise to give out. Can you spot them? Oh yeah, I can see a couple being raised. You can make your way to the front. And if I can get some assistance to hand out some of this merchandise, just to show appreciation for your contributions right here, in whichever capacity. Any stickers, come to the front, don't feel shy. There we have one. I was informed there are roughly 6 of them. Aha, another one, another one, another one. Oh, the lucky few. Kindly make your way to the front if you can get some assistance in handing out some of this merchandise. Yeah, please. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. So what does your sticker say, briefly?
Concern, GHI.
Okay, nice.
Zero hunger.
Zero hunger. Yours
Zero hunger.
as well.
Concern for all.
Concern for all. Yours?
Zero hunger.
Zero hunger. Okay, if you can kindly assist. We have some bottles as well. We'll be handing them out. Here you go. Here you go. Stick it up. Aye. Here you go. Don't go yet. We have a couple of bottles here. I'd just like to, yes, please. Equally, can pass out, take a bottle right there. There are 2 right on the table. You can pick one. Oops. Makofi to the lucky few. Well, it's just a small token of appreciation to show that we're truly in this journey together as we recommit to zero hunger. We've just held a picture moment. I'd like us to hold reflections from various government officials who are here with us today. If Sarah Mwangi is in the room, kindly make your way to the podium. We'd like your reflection. She's the Assistant Director, State Department for ASL and Regional Development. Sarah Mwangi. Well, there she is. A round of applause as she makes her way to the podium. Karibu sana. Brief reflections following the report that has just been broken down by Edgar Okoth. Karibu.
Thank you. Is it still morning? Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. Yes, I'm Sarah Mwangi from the State Department for Arid and Semi-Arid Lands and Regional Development. Let me really appreciate the effort by each and every partner in complementing the government efforts in the fight towards hunger. As the report indicates, the mostly hit counties lies in the arid land, isn't it? So as we go ahead in the fight against hunger, we need to work in very radical ways so that this fight, so that we are able to win this fight and battle all of us together, isn't it? When the hunger pangs bite, it bites most for the arid areas. Somebody said that most of us here, this is just a discussion about hunger, but for majority of the people, it's a reality. Somebody wakes up, don't know what to eat or to drink, water being so scarce. Like there's a report that had been presented earlier on about our Muslim communities. Now that they are having the fasting, some questions were asked. We are fasting from what? We've been fasting all along. But currently, we don't have water. And you know that for one to be productive in all ways, whether socially, economically, or in whichever aspect, one must be free from hunger. At least you must be satisfied to some extent. So it's a call for action. This launch, it's an eye-opener. It's a call for action for everyone so that we fight this fight together and we win it all together. The State Department has been given the mandate of planning and coordinating the development of arid and semi-arid lands and regional development, also the basin-based regions. And we are doing so in rolling out interventions that are geared towards climate resilient agriculture in most of these areas. Bwana Secretary, this issue to do with water, if it is a fail to some of these lands, it can really be a great intervention, considering that most of these lands are really well endowed. We have a lot of endowed in the arid and semi-arid lands, as you all are aware. We have fast resources. The lands are very fast and very productive. If only we have some of the resources are failed. So it's a call for action that all the partners, all the actors comes on board to see how we can affect these situations. We are also rolling out livestock productions, interventions, taking care of the various value chains that exist along the value chain of the agricultural, livestock, considering that pastoralism forms the largely proportion of the communities that live in these arid areas. So the State Department has even gone out to roll out some feedlot production, land management as well, so that at least we are able to take care of these communities. So more so it's about building the resilience of these communities, so that they are able to withstand the climate shocks when it happens. These things are happening and affecting majority of the communities. It shows that we have a long way to go, considering that the early and semi-early land forms over 89% of the entire country land mass, and we have over 40% of the population living in these places. So which makes that leaves out the other 60% living in other places. So if these lands are well taken care of by rolling out the suitable interventions, then we can be sure that at least the food production for the entire country, at least it will not be a fairly tall order. We are ASAL regions are being considered as the next frontier of socio-economic transformation. If, as I had said earlier, these interventions are well utilized, we can have a lot of opportunities arising out of these arid and semi-arid areas. So I think I'll come to a stop and congratulate what our actors, all the actors are doing. Let us all, accept this call for action. We shift from humanitarian relief to resilience building in all aspects, from emergency response to long-term investment, so that we will realize the arid and semi-arid lands and regional development as the next frontiers of development, and also take advantage of the indigenous knowledge and innovations, considering that most of the local communities are leading in the way through by having, providing the indigenous forecasting through community-led climate forecasting, and all this is geared toward preparing for the dry spells. Also, we take advantage of alternative livelihoods in the ASAL communities, not basically the ASAL communities, but largely throughout the country. These are something that we can copy and replicate in other areas. Alternative livelihoods, so that whereas droughts or the recurrent floods strikes, at least these people have a caution. They have a shock responsive caution where they can fall back to without really being affected so much. So in so doing, we need to have smarter funding, not just more funding, so that we realize the benefits of the various investments that have been done. Let's maybe majorly focus on investments in renewable energy for irrigation, because with water, as I had said earlier, with water we are able to counter and to fight the hunger together. Maybe we can roll out also cold chain logistics for livestock products, digital mapping for early warning systems, which have been done so well by the NDMA. As we try to move from fragmented projects to integrated regional development. So this one calls for synchronized resource mobilization by all actors in the face of the tightened humanitarian funding, as we had earlier. As much as we don't have any funding, but needs, we still have rising needs, and more so hunger needs. So maybe all those who are able and working in various ASAL space, let's support the communities living there, that are living there, by all these interventions, and we are sure that we'll see a lot being done. So thank you. I'm so grateful that we are having this discussion, and let it just make it a reality for us to achieve zero hunger by 2030. I don't know how many of us seated here sees this as a reality by a show of hearts. In the next about 2030 is about how many years from today? 4. In the next 4 years, how many are really optimistic that we'll see some significant change? Yeah. It's somewhere, we can see it somewhere. So we remain hopeful and we work, isn't it? Yeah, for us to achieve this. Thank you, and good luck to all of us.
Well, someone once told me hope is not a strategy. So we really have to walk the talk to ensure this zero hunger dream is a reality by 2030, 4 years' time. How time flies, yeah? Anyway, let me call the next government official to give brief remarks as they reflect on the GHI 2025 report. I'd like to call Fedha Daritsu to the stage. That's the partnerships lead at the Council of Governors. Karibu sana, madam. A round of applause, kindly.
Good morning. Secretary, allow that I stand on the protocols that have already been established in this place. And of course, borrow by saying, good morning, noble people. Yes. Is it morning? Yes. It's still morning. Yeah, I'm happy to be here this morning. And I'm glad that I'm coming in after we have seen the report. And I don't know the feeling it puts in you as an individual while sitting here. And of course, the last question that was asked here was whether we will achieve zero hunger. And the answer was resounding no, especially from the tables here. And whether there is hope to actually make some progress, we all agree, right? The light may seem dim, but there is hope. A book I believe in says, there is also hope for a dead lion. Even a log of a tree, when it's dead, it actually would germinate. So let's not kill hope. Allow that I just appreciate the organizers of this event this morning, even as we look at the Global Hunger Index, which I believe is coming at a time that is very critical. And allow that I speak for county governments on this particular one. I would wish, I know all of us in one way or the other come from one county or the other, but I wish we had more county participation in this discussion. Why? They are the drivers. Everything happens at the grassroots. This is where policy is made a reality. So we could have very good cases and very good stories, but if nothing really is done by the people at the very low level, I don't know how much we would achieve. So my prayer is that let us make counties drivers of this study, and allow that I just pick out on a few things and a few pointers to our conversation today. And I will borrow from a different study that has been done by UNICEF, and it again speaks to this data. And it says, if you look at the poverty of Kenya 2014-2022, it actually, do you know whether our poverty grew or dropped? Kenyan poverty. Did poverty grow or reduce? Some people, the thumbs up story, did it grow? Did it go down? Now the reality is, between 2014 and 2022, the poverty level in Kenya increased. That is the reality. From 45 to 55.3. And the GDP grew from 43.5 to what? I'm assuming we are readers. I would want us to study. Look at those studies. Our GDP grew, but our poverty levels increased. What a paradox. Should they not go hand in hand? So what does that tell us as we speak about the issues of hunger? And I will refer again to another study that actually indicates the government spending. We actually spend as a nation 1% of our budget towards nutrition. Do you know the contribution of nutrition to poverty in Kenya? Again, I'm speaking to experts. I'm throwing these questions to us so that we can reflect on them together. is actually one of the biggest driver of multidimensional poverty in Kenya today. And then that begs the question, where is our investment? Where are we investing? And in whom are we investing that particular investment? I liked the slide that showed us about data and the budget investment that said, what percentage of Kenyan government budget goes into food, agriculture? 1.6%. So what does that tell you? What is the driver of economic growth in Kenya today? I wish I was a preacher. I would be saying you shout it out. Yes. Your guess is as good as mine. The realization of SDGs 2 is not going to happen unless we actually work together. And working together means both governments, that is national and county governments, and all stakeholders speaking from the same script. We have a scenario where everybody does everything somewhere in small spaces. And even when we need to pull a particular direction, we may not, somebody's doing something but in a small way. I don't know if we know the power of multiplication and galvanizing and pulling together. My call for us this morning would be, what would be our contribution as a people in this room towards the realization of SDG number 2? We spell it very right in our documents, and when we're writing proposals and requests for funding and how we want to realize it. And when I go to MED, the department at the National Treasury that is speaking about the tracking of SDGs, I don't know how much that is. The report by the national government last year on the VNR to the high-level political forum last year in New York actually showed that our realization of SDGs had declined on a number of indicators, and this is one of them. So what do we need to do differently? Devolution came and ought to have been our vantage point. The question would be, how are we enabling devolution to be that vehicle that then will deliver the results that we so desire? And that just goes by asking the question, how many county representatives are in this room? Or who are we speaking to? Or who would this data be speaking to this morning? Allow that I speak to data, and now that I have mentioned a little bit of a different component of data, there is a lot of data in this country, and I can tell you, I love consuming data, and I pray for a day we build an nexus between policy and data, because then that will be guiding our investments. The question should be, how do we shift our investment secretary, I'm glad you're here, to inform the direction we want to take. We only have one MTP to 2030. So we will not be saying Vision 2030. We'll be having a new blueprint. What would be the drivers of that blueprint that would change the numbers that have been reflected here today? As we sit here today, there's a task force, there's a team that is working on the review of guidelines for the development of county integrated development plans, midterm reviews. What needs to shift? I don't know our level of participation in that effort, because then we need to make sure that the data is with the right people at the right time. You could have the right data in the wrong hands, it does not solve our problems. Our challenges is not that we do not know. And it's not that there is no information. It's that the information is either with the wrong person or the right person who is not sharing that data. And even when we have it, we've not utilized it to inform policy and guide our investment. I hope that this report here today will actually go into budgets and influence our allocations for the respective sectors. Within agriculture and health, sometimes I'm saddened when I look at nutrition, for instance. Where's nutrition budget? Is it in health or in agriculture? Let's face it. It's in health. Does agriculture have a contribution towards nutrition? Yes. The biggest. So that tells you we have a lot more to do. Even just the particular advocacy towards the realization of nutrition anchored not just within health, but even also within agriculture, across board, so that it's not spoken to under the tables. Secretary, one of the questions we've been asking, when will nutrition be an agenda in cabinet? Not just at the national, but even within county government. And allow that, this is a safe space, I could say this, because I'm challenging us to reflect as we launch this report, that this report will not catch dust. And it will not just form a statistics of those documents we make reference to that have implied or spoken to how Kenya is performing poorly. It's one thing to perform poor, and another to realize that this is where we are, and we must do something about it. And I can assure you, from where we sit as counties, something must be done. And we must do something about it. Of course, a lot is happening within county governments. And if you've been in the space, a lot of smart climate agriculture is being enhanced, and it's taking place across board. But it takes time for us to realize the results. But how do we then, I'm trying to get the right word, turbocharge. I think at the last SDGs forum, they were using the words turbocharge. How do we turbocharge agriculture as that, not just as a tool, but that enabler environment to ensure that then we are addressing the gaps that we need to talk to? I don't know how many private sector we have in the room today. This is an opportunity to respond to the needs of the people of Kenya. Again, I hope this report is not just for us, the people within this space, but also in the hands of the people with the resource who are asking, where do I put my money? Remember, the solution of Kenya hunger is not in the acres that an individual has grown, but what an individual household is able to grow. Then cumulatively, we are able to solve hunger issues at household level. In close, allow that I mention that we may need to be more innovative in how we approach issues of hunger. Somebody mentioned about indigenous knowledge. How are we tapping into it? How are we protecting indigenous, even early warning signs within the indigenous communities have slowly died. That tells you why we would actually be in a space, we know drought is coming, but we will actually wait until it is with us for us to call it famine and respond with the delivery of food. Very important for us to note, let's utilize data. I pray that this document would be utilized, not just by the stakeholders here, but as a whole. As I close, the last point, Vision 2030 is coming to an end. What is the strategy to ensure that the next blueprint is speaking to ending hunger in Kenya, with counties as drivers? God bless you.
Well, thank you so much for the key questions she's raising about the involvement of counties, how we need to shake up investment to inform the direction we want to take, and equally, when will nutrition be a priority in cabinet? Those are key questions that perhaps our chief guest, Joel Tanui, can delve into as he reflects on this particular report. Joel Tanui is the Irrigation Secretary at the State Department of Irrigation at the Ministry of Water and Irrigation. Secretary Tanui, karibu sana.
Thank you. I think allow me first of all the distinguished guests who are here, led by Her Excellency the Ambassador who was here. We have the country directors, WHH and the World Concern, and all the government officials. Good morning. I think this morning, when I was coming, I was consulting with the Cabinet Secretary for Water and Irrigation, and I was thinking, is it by coincidence or design that the Minister for Water and Irrigation is invited to grace a hunger report? And perhaps I was thinking it was a very polite way of the organizers saying, please come and give us a government position on this issue. So I think that was very diplomatic of you. But nevertheless, we will speak on the government position on this. I have sat and reflected on the issue of hunger, and therefore what the Minister for Water had told me to go through, I think I'll give to the organizers. I always like to just speak on the matter myself, because today I find myself in a position of prosecuting the matter. I'm always behind him in terms of doing his speeches, his technical advisory notes, and also doing the cabinet memos. And today I'm on the floor to prosecute the matter. I think allow me then on behalf of the Cabinet Secretary, Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, to sincerely thank you for inviting us to grace this very important and reflective moment in our country when we are launching the Global Hunger Index 2025 report for Kenya. So I want to also thank WHH and World Concern for taking a lead in this important event. And you have allowed me to use the word WHH because pronouncing World Hunger Health, I have practiced it in my mind for some time now until I asked the director allow me to use WHH. Otherwise, it may be the only word that I'll say in the course of the day. I may need to rest my lips. So for decades, this Global Hunger Index has served as a global reference for meeting hunger, tracking of progress, and guiding collective action towards a world free from hunger. So therefore, in line with the theme of now tracking progress and recommitting, the ministry or the government in general, particularly State Department for Irrigation, we are highly committed to ending hunger in Kenya. And for the past decade, we've been struggling in terms of development towards food security. But for the last 2 years, we have taken a very deep reflection on this subject and realized that for the last 70 years, we have only done 288,000 hectares of land under irrigation, which is less than 20% of the potential in this country. We can do up to 1.3 million hectares of land. If you look at that difference, because we started irrigation programs way in the 1950s, specifically 1954. All these years, close to 70 years, we've attained 288,000 hectares. It tells you, therefore, that we need to think beyond the normal and act beyond the norm if we have to attain food sufficiency by 2030. And therefore, as a government, we have come up with a very clear roadmap now to address food insecurity through irrigation. We have developed a 10-year concrete plan we are calling the National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan. This plan seeks to put in over 598 billion Kenya shillings in this sector. And therefore, how we are going to do this is government alone cannot afford to finance the plan. What we are doing is we are now working with the private sector to unlock this crucial food security sector, to bring on board private investors who can be able to unlock it. This investment plan has 5 very critical pathways. One is we are looking at the existing irrigation schemes in this country, and we realize there are very few small acreage. What we want to do is to modernize them, rehabilitate them, and increase their efficiency to food production so that they can serve their intended purpose. So we have mapped them and developed a program to revitalize all public irrigation schemes in the country. The other one is we have decided to enhance smallholder community irrigation programs across all the counties. Currently, we have around 2,500 smallholder irrigation schemes. We want to revitalize them and increase them so that they can serve communities. This is where communities collectively work together towards irrigation and food production all the way to marketing. The third pathway, which is very crucial for us as a nation, is now opening up the arid and semi-arid areas. If you looked at the map that was presented here, 80% of the country currently fall in the arid and semi-arid areas. Kenyans, majority of them now live within the 20%. A few counties, almost 5 counties, host the population of almost 90% of Kenyans. We have even had a migration or a shift from almost 30 or 35 counties to the cities and to the agriculturally rich areas. This has seriously exposed us Okay, I have a request that there's something that needs to go live in the next minute, then I can continue.
So sorry to cut you short. We'll still require your input right here. We need to ensure that the official launch of this particular report goes to our viewers who are not just here, but equally watching through the social media channels and equally at home. If we can have someone to assist bring the reports right here to the front, it would be a pleasure. Equally assist with some Caesars, even as I call our chief guest back to the podium, Joel Tanui, who's the Irrigation Secretary, State Department for Irrigation, will equally be joined by the country directors, Christian Schneiper, as well as Nellie Kingston, to join the chief guest as well. And remember, this, ladies and gentlemen, is simply symbolism to